So what we're going to run through here, layers of the atmosphere and what's going on. One of the big things we want to focus on with this is that part of what's happening is unobservable mechanisms. What this means is that things are happening that we can't necessarily see, but we still know that they're occurring based on the way nature responds. So I've listed 5 layers of the atmosphere right here. So if we look at the bottom, we're going to start with Earth. So the first layer off of Earth is the troposphere. It extends 4 to 12 miles off of the Earth's surface, and this is known as the weather layer. Well, the reason this is known as the weather layer is because this is where weather actually occurs. This is also where 80% of the mass in our atmosphere is located, because it's closest and it's the densest portion. So the reason this is known as the weather layer, because if you could imagine solar radiation coming down through the atmosphere, as it hits, it heats up the water. The water, as it gets hotter and hotter, eventually results in evaporation, and as evaporation occurs, we change a liquid to a gas, it rises up. As it rises, it gets cooler. Now eventually it gets so cool that it actually starts to turn back into a liquid. It starts to condense through condensation, and as this occurs, clouds are formed in the troposphere. Now eventually, the clouds get so heavy with water that gravity results in rain, we have precipitation. So the reason this is known as the troposphere is because this is where the weather is occurring, this is where water is changing from a gas back to a liquid. This is also the portion for the water cycle. Next section is the stratosphere. This is where the ozone layer is. So once again, if we imagine the solar radiation coming in, the ozone layer helps disperse that energy out, helps break it up so that we don't get cancer. This is also where airplanes fly, and the stratosphere is known as the calm layer. And this is the reason it's known as the calm layer is because the air, which moves along the troposphere, stays relatively flat here. And this is why planes are able to fly through with no issue. So actually what's happening when you experience turbulence in the plane, that up and down bouncy motion, is actually changes in interaction with clouds going through with planes. And this extends about 30 to 35 miles off the surface. The mesosphere is next. This is known as the cold layer. Temperature can get as low as 184 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. This is also where meteors break up. So if you ever think of a shooting star at night, you see that streak across the surface. That's actually meteors breaking up in the mesosphere itself. Now the thermosphere, this is where space shuttles orbit. About 50 to 400 miles off the Earth's surface. This is where the space shuttles that actually go in a consistent orbit timed around the Earth, this is where they're staying. And then the very last layer, the exosphere, very, very thin, and this is the last layer before we actually would leave Earth's atmosphere and actually go out into space. So about 6,200 miles off of Earth's surface, this is where satellites are as well. Now, you'll notice the difference between the space shuttle and the satellites is this is to ensure that shuttles are not going to collide with any material that's up here. So this is our run through of layers of the atmosphere, focusing specifically with troposphere being a portion of the water cycle. If you have questions, please let me know, and as always, follow me at Mr. PG Science.